What if the biggest thing standing between you and the life you want is not your circumstances, but the size of your thinking? Think about that. Two people can face the same problem, see the same opportunity, live in the same world, and still create completely different lives. Why? Because they think differently. One sees limitations. The other sees possibilities. One says, I can't. The other asks, how can I? That small difference can change everything. Your thoughts influence your choices. Your choices shape your habits. And your habits eventually shape your life. So if you constantly think small, you begin making small decisions. You accept small opportunities. You expect small results. But when you begin thinking bigger, something changes. Your vision expands. Your confidence grows. Your actions become different. Now listen carefully. Thinking big does not mean pretending life is easy. It means refusing to let difficulty decide what is possible. It means looking beyond today and asking, what could my life become? Because your current situation is not your final destination. You can learn more. You can become stronger. You can develop new skills. You can build new habits. You can create a future that looks completely different from your past. But first, you must allow yourself to see it. Big achievements begin with a bigger vision. So today, let's explore the power of thinking bigger and discover how changing the way you think can change the direction of your entire life. Now think about this. What if the life you want is bigger than the life you currently imagine? What if the limits you see are not really limits? What if they are simply the boundaries of your current thinking? Because your life often moves in the direction of your thoughts. Think small, and you begin looking for reasons to stay small. Think bigger, and you begin searching for possibilities. That is the power of thinking big. It does not mean pretending that problems don't exist. It means refusing to let problems become the size of your future. A difficult past does not have to create a difficult future. A temporary setback does not have to become a permanent identity. You may have failed before. You may have been rejected. You may have made mistakes. But none of those things have the authority to decide what you can become next. Now listen carefully. Your expectations matter. If you expect very little from yourself, you may never demand more. You may avoid challenges. You may settle for comfort. You may say, that's good enough. But when you raise your expectations, your actions begin to change. You start asking better questions. Instead of saying, I can't do this, you ask, how can I do this? That is a powerful question, because I can't closes the door. How can I begins looking for the key? And sometimes that one change in thinking is where your entire future begins. Think about a person standing at the bottom of a mountain. If they look at the mountain and say it's too high, they may never take the first step. But another person looks at the same mountain and says, where do I begin? Same mountain, different thinking, different decision, different future. That is why you must protect your mind. Be careful what you repeatedly tell yourself, because eventually you may believe it. Tell yourself you're incapable, and you will act incapable. Tell yourself you can learn, and you will begin looking for ways to learn. Tell yourself you can improve, and you will start improving. Your thoughts become instructions, and your actions begin following those instructions. Now, hear this. Thinking big is not about wanting more, just for the sake of having more. It is about becoming more capable, more disciplined, more courageous, more useful, more valuable. A bigger vision should create a bigger you. That is the real magic. Because when you expand your thinking, you expand what you are willing to attempt. And when you attempt more, you learn more. When you learn more, you become more capable. And when you become more capable, new opportunities begin to appear. So don't ask only, what can I achieve? Ask something deeper. Who can I become? Because your goals will require a different version of you. A stronger version. A wiser version. A more disciplined version. And that person begins with the way you think today. So raise your vision. Raise your expectations. Raise the questions you ask yourself. Stop measuring your future by your present circumstances. Your current situation is simply where you are. It is not necessarily where you will remain. Think bigger. Believe that growth is possible. Believe that you can learn. Believe that you can improve. Then do the work. Because big thinking without action is only imagination. But big thinking combined with discipline can change a life. Your first breakthrough may not happen in your circumstances. It may happen inside your mind. The moment you stop saying, why can't I? And start asking, how can I? That is when possibilities begin. That is when your vision expands. That is when you begin building a life larger than the one you once thought was possible. Now listen carefully. There is something you must understand before you can build a bigger life. You must first build a bigger picture of yourself. Because many people are living far below their potential, not because they lack ability, but because they have already decided what they are capable of. They have measured themselves by their past, by their mistakes, by their circumstances, by what other people told them. And somewhere along the way, they began thinking, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not capable enough. And that thought became a ceiling. Now, think about that. A person may have enormous potential, but if they believe they are small, they will make small decisions. They will choose small goals. They will avoid big opportunities. They will stay where they feel safe. Not because they have to, but because they have convinced themselves that they cannot do more. That is the trap. Now hear this. Most people underestimate themselves. They see the mountain and forget they can climb. They see the challenge and forget they can learn. They see the opportunity and immediately think someone else is more qualified. But why? Why should you automatically assume that you are the weakest person in the room? Why should you assume that you cannot improve? Why should your past performance become the permanent measurement of your future ability? It shouldn't. Now listen closely. You are not finished growing. You are still learning. You are still developing. You are still discovering what you can become. So stop judging your potential by your current skill level. You may not know how yet. That does not mean you cannot learn. You may not have the confidence yet. That does not mean you cannot build it. You may not have the experience yet. That does not mean you cannot gain it. The word yet can change the way you see yourself. Now think about a child learning to walk. The child falls, then gets up, falls again, gets up again. Nobody says you are a failure. Why? Because everyone understands the child is learning. But as adults, we often make one mistake and suddenly we decide we can't do it. No, you are learning. Try again. Learn again. Improve again. That is how ability is built. Now hear this. Thinking big does not mean you believe you can do everything immediately. It means you believe you can become capable of doing more than you can do today. That is a much stronger belief. You don't need to have all the answers. You need the willingness to search for them. You don't need to know every step. You need the courage to take the next one. Now, let me ask you something. What would you attempt if you stopped assuming you were not capable? What goal would you pursue What business would you start? What skill would you learn? What conversation would you have? What opportunity would you take? Think about it. Your life may change. When you stop asking, am I good enough? And start asking, what do I need to learn to become good enough? That is bigger thinking. Now understand this. Don't make your world smaller. Just because your confidence is small, build your confidence through action. Take one step, then another. Each small victory provides evidence. Evidence that you can learn. Evidence that you can improve. Evidence that you can keep going. And eventually you begin seeing yourself differently. Not because someone told you that you are capable, but because you proved it to yourself. Now listen. Stop comparing your beginning to someone else's middle. You see their results. You don't see their years of effort. You see their confidence. You don't see their failures. You see the finished product. You don't see the process. So give yourself permission to be a beginner. Give yourself permission to grow, but never give yourself permission to stay small. Raise your standards. Raise your expectations. Raise your vision. Then match that vision with disciplined action, because the size of your thinking often determines the size of your effort, and the size of your effort, and the size of your effort can determine the size of your results. So size up your thinking. Stop underestimating yourself. Stop measuring your future by your past. Stop allowing fear to tell you what is possible. You may be capable of far more than you currently believe. And perhaps the first step toward discovering that potential is simply deciding to think bigger. Now listen carefully. A big vision is powerful, but a vision without action remains a picture in your mind. You can dream about a better life. You can imagine success. You can set ambitious goals, but eventually you have to get to work, because thinking big is only the beginning. Working bigger is where transformation happens. Now understand this. Big dreams require bigger commitment, not necessarily more hours, but better use of the hours you already have. More focus, more discipline, more consistency, more willingness to do what needs to be done even when you don't feel like doing it. That is the difference between someone who dreams and someone who builds. Now, think about a builder. He may have a beautiful vision of the house he wants to create, but the vision doesn't lay the foundation. The vision doesn't lift the bricks. The vision doesn't finish the walls. The work does. Your future works the same way. Your vision gives you direction. Your discipline moves you forward. Now, hear this carefully. Don't make the mistake of believing that successful people are always motivated. They aren't. They have difficult mornings too. They get tired. They experience doubt. They face setbacks, but they have something stronger than motivation. They have a standard. They have decided what they do, whether they feel like it or not. That is discipline. Now ask yourself, does your daily routine match your biggest goal? If you say you want success, but spend your days distracted, your routine is answering for you. If you say you want growth, but never make time to learn, your routine is answering for you. If you say you want a better future, but keep repeating the same habits, your routine is answering for you. Your vision tells you where you want to go. Your habits reveal whether you are actually going there. Now listen, stop looking for shortcuts. Shortcuts are attractive because they promise results without transformation. But lasting success requires transformation. You must become stronger. You must become wiser. You must become more disciplined. You must develop the ability to stay focused long after the excitement disappears. That is the work. Now think about the compound effect. One productive morning may not change your life, One book may not change your life. One workout may not change your life. But repeat those actions for months, for years. And suddenly your life looks different. Small actions become powerful when they are repeated. Now hear this. Break your big vision into daily responsibilities. Don't just say, I want to become successful. Ask, what must I do today? What must you learn? What must you finish? Who must you contact? What habit must you practice? What distraction must you eliminate? Make your vision specific enough to guide your day. Because dreams become reality through schedules, through routines, through repeated action. Now remember, you don't need to become extraordinary overnight. You need to become a little better every day. Read more. Work with greater focus. Wake up with purpose. Plan your priorities. Keep your promises. And when the work becomes difficult, don't immediately look for an easier path. Sometimes the difficult path is the path that develops you. So think big, dream bigger. But then work with patience. Work with discipline. Work with consistency. Because the size of your vision means very little if the size of your effort doesn't match it. Your future needs more than imagination. It needs execution. So raise your vision and then raise your standards. Dream about the life you want. Then build the habits that can create it. Think big, work bigger, and let your daily discipline become the bridge between the life you imagine and the life you finally live. Now listen carefully. Confidence is not something you wait for. It is something you build step by step, action by action, day by day. Many people say, I'll start when I feel confident. But think about that. How can you become confident before you have done the thing? You can't. Confidence usually comes after action, not before it. You take the step. You face the difficulty. You learn. You improve. And suddenly you trust yourself a little more. That is how confidence grows. Now hear this. You don't have to believe that you can do everything. You only need to believe that you can learn what you don't know yet. That is a bigger belief. You may not be ready today. That's okay. You can prepare. You may not have the skill. That's okay. You can learn. You may feel afraid. That's okay. You can act anyway, because courage is not the absence of fear. It is movement, in spite of fear. Now think about the first step. It is usually the hardest. The blank page, the first workout, the first business idea, the first difficult conversation. Everything feels uncertain. But once you begin, something changes. The unknown becomes experience. Experience becomes knowledge. Knowledge becomes confidence. And confidence creates more action. That is how the cycle begins. Now listen closely. Stop waiting for perfection. Perfection is often a beautiful excuse for staying still. You don't need perfect conditions. You need a beginning. Start small. Take one step, then take another. Let your actions teach your mind what you are capable of, because every small victory becomes evidence. You finished the task. You kept the promise. You showed up. You didn't quit. That evidence matters. It changes the way you see yourself. Now understand this. Your inner conversation matters. If you constantly tell yourself, I can't, your mind begins searching for reasons to stop, but ask, how can I? And your mind begins searching for solutions, better questions. Create better possibilities. So speak to yourself with responsibility, not empty praise, not fantasy, but belief supported by action. Say, I can learn, I can improve, I can try again, I can become better. Then prove it with what you do. Now remember, confidence without action is only a feeling. Action creates evidence. Evidence creates confidence. That is why you must move. Even when you're uncertain, even when you're nervous, even when you don't know exactly how everything will work out. take the next step. You can adjust as you go. Now think about your future. There is a version of you who is stronger, wiser, more capable, more disciplined. That person is not created by wishing. That person is created through decisions. One brave decision, then another. One difficult action, then another. Until eventually, you look back and realize you became the person you once doubted you could become. So believe big or not, because everything will be easy. Believe bigger, because you are capable of growth. You are capable of learning. You are capable of changing, and you are capable of doing more than you currently believe. Stop waiting for confidence. Take action. Build evidence. Strengthen your belief. Then take another step. Because confidence is not found at the end of the journey. It is built along the way. Now, think about this. Thinking big is not something you do once. It is a way of living, a way of seeing, a way of choosing, a way of becoming. Because the real goal is not simply to achieve one big dream. The real goal is to become the kind of person who can continue creating bigger results again and again and again. That requires change, not just around you, but within you. You cannot build a bigger future with the same thinking that created your smaller past. Something must expand your vision, your standards, your habits, your knowledge, your courage, your capacity. That is personal growth. And personal growth is where lasting success begins. Think about the person you want to become. How does that person think? How does that person spend time? How does that person respond to problems? What does that person refuse to tolerate? What habits does that person practice? Those questions matter because your future is being shaped by the person you are becoming today. Now hear this. Raise your standards. Not because you think you are better than everyone else, but because you understand that your life deserves your best effort. Stop accepting what you know you can improve. Stop making excuses for habits you have the power to change. Stop saying that is just who I am. You are not finished. You can learn. You can grow. You can change. You can become more. Now think about your environment. What are you listening to? What ideas are you consuming? Who are you spending time with? What conversations are shaping your expectations? Your environment matters. If you constantly surround yourself with small thinking, you may eventually begin thinking small. But when you expose yourself to better ideas, better examples, better questions, your vision begins to expand. You start seeing possibilities that you couldn't see before. So protect your mind. Feed it useful ideas. Read, learn, observe, ask questions, stay curious. Because the person who keeps learning keeps expanding. Now understand this. Thinking big does not mean chasing a life that looks impressive to everyone else. It means creating a life that is meaningful to you. Success is not simply having more. It is becoming more capable, more disciplined, more useful, more courageous, more responsible. That is the transformation. Now listen closely. There will always be reasons to settle. There will always be people who say your goals are too ambitious. There will always be circumstances that make you question yourself. Don't let temporary conditions become permanent conclusions. Your current situation is information. It is not your identity. Learn from it. Improve from it. Move beyond it. Keep expanding your capacity because you may be capable of far more than you have ever attempted. Now remember, big thinking must become action. Don't simply imagine a bigger life. Build the habits that can support it. Don't simply dream about becoming disciplined. Practice discipline. Don't simply wish for confidence. Take action and give yourself reasons to believe in yourself. That is how transformation happens. One decision, one habit, one improvement, one courageous step at a time. And eventually the bigger life you imagine begins to feel normal. Not because life became easier, but because you became stronger. So become the person who thinks bigger, who learns constantly, who expects more from themselves, who sees opportunity where others see obstacles, who refuses to let fear write the final chapter. Because when you change, your choices change. When your choices change, your habits change. When your habits change, your results change. And when your results change, your entire life can change. That is the real power of thinking big. Not simply dreaming bigger, but becoming bigger in character, in discipline, in courage, in vision, and in action. Become that person. And the future you once thought was impossible may become the life you now call normal. Now let me leave you with one final thought. Your life will rarely become bigger until your thinking becomes bigger. It begins in the mind. Before the achievement, there is the belief. Before the success, there is the vision. Before the transformation, there is the decision to stop thinking small. Think about where you are today. Then ask yourself, is this the best I can become? Maybe not. Maybe there is more. More courage, more discipline, more knowledge, more opportunity, more potential waiting to be developed. So, don't let your past become the limit of your future. Don't let one failure define your ability. Don't let fear choose your direction. And don't let other people's small thinking become your own. Think bigger. Dream bigger. Expect more from yourself. But remember, thinking big is only the beginning. You must work. You must learn. You must stay disciplined. You must keep moving when the results are slow. Because a big vision requires bigger action. Your future will not be created by what you wish for. It will be created by what you repeatedly do. So raise your standards. Strengthen your habits. Choose better thoughts. Surround yourself with better ideas. And become the person who is capable of carrying the future you imagine. One day you may look back and realize the biggest change was not your circumstances. It was you. You started thinking differently. You started believing differently. You started acting differently. And because you changed, your life changed. So don't ask, is my dream too big? Ask, am I willing to become big enough to achieve it? That is the question, and that is where your journey begins. Think bigger, believe bigger, work bigger, become bigger. Because the life you want may be waiting on the other side of the limits you finally decide to remove.